writers, let's talk semicolons. Kurt Vonnegut famously warned creative writers from using the semicolon, saying, quote, all they do is show you've been to college. Now, speaking as a writer and English professor, there's some truth to that. After all, most everything a semicolon does could be achieved with other tools, such as a conjunction, a period, or even an em dash, and that's because the semicolon's job within prescriptive grammar is to join two independent clauses, ideally two independent clauses that share some relation, such as a contrast. However, there are some instances, particularly in creative writing, in which a semicolon is uniquely suited, and we can take a look at a few examples. First, let's talk about the semicolon as a rhetorical tool. Remember, rhetorical grammar is just the strategic manipulation of a sentence's grammar, essentially shifting and manipulating emphasis in the sentence to achieve a desired aesthetic effect. Not only does the semicolon naturally produce a juxtaposition between the elements on either side of it, but the semicolon also possesses a great deal of rhetorical weight and can create a very weighty pause within a sentence, much more so than a simple conjunction. Think of it almost like a period that falls inside a sentence. The question then becomes when you'd want to create such a pause. So let's take a look at Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway. Having lived in Westminster, how many years now? Over 20. One feels even in the midst of traffic or waking at night, Clarissa was positive, a particular hush or solemnity, an indescribable pause, a suspense, but that might be her heart, affected, they said, by influenza. Before Big Ben strikes, there, out it boomed, first a warning, musical, then the hour, irrevocable. Hush, solemnity, pause, suspense. All of these feelings within Clarissa are further captured in the rhythm of the sentence thanks to the semicolon. And notice also that last sentence in which the semicolon highlights the juxtaposition between the moments in which Big Ben is striking. Also, notice how in that sentence the two independent clauses joined by the semicolon are perfectly parallel in terms of their grammar. That's just a nice touch, but of course it is. It's Virginia Woolf that we're talking about here. Now let's look at two other uses of the semicolon in creative writing, two of my favorites, but these are less for rhetorical effect than they are for the purposes of readability. For the first, let's say we have a parenthetical in the middle of the sentence that is set off with em dashes. But within that parenthetical, we have two independent clauses. However, we don't want to use coordinating conjunctions because there's already a lot of commas. So we could have something like this. They went to the movies. John suggested the latest horror film, but Mary wasn't having that. She suggested instead something more lighthearted, a comedy perhaps, and returned home later that evening. Sort of related to that previous example, let's say that we have a sentence with a series of items, but within that series there are additional phrases that also require commas. So if you were to use more commas to separate the series, it would just be really confusing for your reader. In that case, what you can do is you can break some of those prescriptive traditional grammatical rules and use semicolons to stand in for the commas, joining together the series of items, so that your reader can easily navigate an otherwise complicated sentence. The car came with two heated seats, which was good for her lower back, a moonroof, which she believed to be romantic, and a rabbit's foot on the rear view, which she believed unnecessary given her good fortune thus far. See how much easier it is to read and understand that sentence than it would be if it was all commas. Again, semicolons aren't ever strictly necessary, but they can do some cool things and come in handy every now and again. But you probably want to use them as sparingly as possible. Otherwise, yeah, your reader will probably just write you off as someone who wants to show you've gone to college.